All right, so this week we are diving into a sky full of surprises, talking about all those eye-catching events happening over the next few nights.
Yeah, and the best part is you don't even need a telescope for this.
Perfect. So what kind of stuff should we be looking out for?
So our guide this week is This Week's Sky at a Glance by Alan McRobert from Sky and Telescope.
Okay, love it.
And they've got some real treats lined up for us this week.
Okay,
So
let's unpack this forecast. What are the highlights?
well, mark your calendars for October 1st
Okay.
because the moon and Jupiter are going to be having a little get-together in the night sky.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just imagine these two celestial giants like practically brushing shoulders up there.
Wow. So how close are we talking? Like, will I need binoculars to tell them apart?
No, not at all. They'll actually be the two brightest objects up there, so they'll be pretty hard to miss.
Wow.
It might even make you wonder, like, what are the odds of seeing something like that?
Yeah, speaking of odds, this article got me thinking about how we even perceive odds like that in the night sky.
Oh, that's a really good point. I mean, it's easy to see something like the moon and Jupiter being close and think, wow, this is a once in a lifetime event. But when you really think about it, Jupiter is visible for a good chunk of the year. The moon goes through its phases every month, so them like running into each other up there, it's not necessarily as improbable as you might think.
Yeah, it's all about perspective, right?
Mm.
We tend to underestimate how often seemingly rare events can actually happen, especially when you're talking about the vastness of space.
Exactly, and it's like thinking you've won the lottery twice because you just happen to find two four-leaf clovers. Like, our brains love to find patterns, even if it means like connecting dots that aren't necessarily meant to be connected.
So it's more about us being like pattern-seeking machines than like actual cosmic coincidences then.
Yeah, precisely. And this whole idea of how our brains process information and make judgments based on what we already know, well, it applies to a lot more than just astronomy.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about how you navigate everyday life. You're constantly taking in new information and like weighing it against your past experiences to make a decision. You see a dark cloud and you think, oh, it might rain, better grab an umbrella.
Right. It's true.
Uh,
Yeah, it's like our brains are constantly updating their internal weather app based on new data.
Exactly. And in a way, that's kind of what we're doing when we look at the night sky. We're using our knowledge of the stars, the planets, these celestial movements to make sense of what we're seeing.
So when we see the moon close to Jupiter, it's not just some random event. It's a result of these predictable celestial mechanics that, our brains are wired to hopefully understand.
You got it. But you don't need to be a math whiz to appreciate the beauty of it all. Just grab a blanket, maybe a warm drink, and just get ready for a night of cosmic wonder.
Now that sounds like a plan I can get behind. So besides the moon and Jupiter's little rendezvous, what else does this week's lineup have in store for us?
Well, on October 2nd, the moon decides to pay a visit to the Pleiades star cluster.
Okay.
But the article does mention that the moonlight might make this one a little tricky to see with just your eyes.
Wait, hold on. So there's a whole cluster of stars up there that we can just miss sometimes just because of a little moonlight.
Isn't that mind-boggling?
It's kind of wild.
It just goes to show how much more is happening in the night sky than we often realize.
So what's a stargazer to do? Do we need some like super-powered vision to catch a glimpse of these elusive Pleiades?
Mm-hmm.
So what's a stargazer to do? Do we need some like super-powered vision to catch a glimpse of these elusive Pleiades?
No. Luckily, a simple pair of binoculars can actually do the trick.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll help amplify the Pleiades light even with that moon still shining nearby.
Okay, cool. So binoculars it is. I'm adding that to my list right now. What else is on the schedule?
Well, on October 4th, get ready for a truly breathtaking sight.
Okay.
The Cygnus Milky Way will be directly overhead.
Okay, I have to admit, I need a little refresher here. When we talk about the Milky Way, what exactly are we referring to?
Yeah, so picture this. Our home galaxy, a massive swirling city of stars, billions upon billions of them.
Right.
And what we see as the Milky Way in the night sky is just a portion of this mind-boggling structure. So it's like a band of light, kind of like a cosmic river flowing across the heavens.
Wow.
That's our view from within.
So when we talk about the Cygnus Milky Way being overhead, are we talking about like looking into the heart of our own galaxy?
Yeah, you got it.
Wow.
Imagine like lying on a blanket looking straight up. That's where you'll find it on October 4th.
Wow.
Now, this is best viewed in areas with like minimal light pollution where the stars really pop.
Right.
Have you ever experienced a truly dark sky?
I sadly have not. Living in the city, I feel like I just see the moon and the brightest stars. That's about it.
Yeah, you should really try to seek that out sometime. It's really a humbling and awe-inspiring experience. There's nothing quite like it.
Yeah.
But even from the city, if you know where to look, you can still catch glimpses of its brighter areas.
Cool. Well, for those lucky enough to be under those dark skies this week, that sounds like a real treat. And speaking of treats, are there any more celestial gems in store for us as we wrap up this stargazing week?
Absolutely. For the night owls listening, there's something special in store for the night of October 5th, going into the morning of the 6th.
Right.
The last quarter moon will be hanging out with Castor.
Castor, as in like one of the twins from Gemini?
That's right.
Oh, very cool.
So what makes this pairing extra interesting is that the waning gibbous moon, that's when it looks like a slightly deflated football,
No.
past full, but not yet a half moon. It'll be positioned directly above Castor.
Okay.
So this creates a really striking contrast because of their differing brightness. So Castor, a bright star in its own right, will almost look dim compared to the moon's reflected sunlight.
You know, it never ceases to amaze me how you can practically set your watch to these events. Like it's like a perfectly choreographed dance across the cosmos. And it really makes you realize how interconnected everything in the universe is.
It truly is humbling. And speaking of interconnectedness, remember how we were discussing how our brains create a model of reality based on what we observe?
You mean that whole mind-bending conversation about how we use our past experiences to like make sense of new information?
Hmm.
How could I forget?
Well, the article touches on something else related to that
For
that I
all.
find pretty fascinating.
Okay.
It talks about how our perception of the universe is essentially limited by the information our senses can gather.
Okay, now you're really making me think. So you're saying that there might be all sorts of incredible things happening out there, events beyond our comprehension that we're just not equipped to perceive.
It's a mind-blowing thought, isn't it?
It is, it's humbling and kind of terrifying. Like how much are we not seeing?
Right. It's humbling and exhilarating. It's
Yeah.
humbling because it reminds us we're just a small part of something much grander than ourselves. But it's also exhilarating because it just opens up a whole universe of possibilities, like who knows what incredible wonders are waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, it's like the universe is full of hidden surprises just waiting for us to develop the tools to even perceive them.
Well, we've covered some amazing events this week. That close encounter with the moon and Jupiter, the Milky Way putting on a show. And we can't forget those late night treats like the moon hanging out with Castor, but it sounds like that's just the tip of the iceberg though, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've just barely scratched the surface of what's visible in the night sky this week.
Wow.
Alan McRoberts' article over at Sky and Telescope has even more details on these events and others that you can observe. Oh, okay. Awesome. We'll definitely have to check that out. But before we sign off, I want to loop back to something you said earlier that really got me thinking about how our senses kind of limit our perception of the universe.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, like, if what we perceive of the universe is really just our brain's best interpretation of very limited data,
Yeah.
then what does that even say about the true nature of reality,
Well, that is the question, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
question philosophers and scientists have been grappling with for centuries. And it's a question that, might not even have a definitive answer,
Yeah.
but just pondering it can lead us down some pretty intriguing paths.
Yeah, it really can. Well, on that note, we'll leave our listeners to do a little contemplation of their own. Be sure to grab a blanket, find a dark corner in your backyard, or better yet, head out to a dark sky location and see what celestial wonders you can discover this week. Until next time, happy stargazing.